All right, good evening, everyone. Tonight we have with us Tammarishka. She is a professional corporate of an executive for a mega Canadian company in Ontario. January 10th, 2012 at 2:10 p.m., her life changed forever. She was in a major car accident. She had to mourn the loss of the person she was and embrace what would be my new normal. She is now a twice ordained spiritual minister, an international medium, and international master teacher of spiritual development, founder of a spiritual development academy, writer of spiritual development material, and founding minister of a spiritualistic congregation. And she is not finished yet. Welcome, Tammarishka. Thank you so much for joining us this evening to share your story with us.
Thank you so much, Lex, for inviting me to speak. It is such, it's very humbling to know that through everything that I've been through and that many people with TBIs can relate to, we question what we have to offer. We question our value because everything that we knew is no longer. Everything that we were is no longer. So to be invited to speak is a great honor. It touched my heart, and I thank you for welcoming me and to speak tonight. So my story started in January 2012 at 2:10 p.m. I was on my way to my doctor's for an appointment, and unfortunately, due to the laws in Ontario, I was the one turning left, even though the other person came flying along and hit me. I was the one at fault. Everything changed. Up until then, I have always been a fighter. I've always been a survivor. And when this car accident happened, it blew me out of the water, and I didn't know how to fight this one. I didn't know how to fight back because everything I had that I've used before didn't apply to this. Over some time, I was told about a place in the States that was known to be a spiritual community, and they had camping there. So I researched it. I found out that they had, and I'm not saying this is for everybody, but there was meditation and meditation healing, and there was all these other experiences, and I really felt like I didn't even know who I was anymore. So with a back brace and ankle braces and wrist braces, medication in a little mini bag case of its own, a scooter, a walker, a cane, a tent, I camped. I camped for just over 2 weeks at this spiritual community, and it changed my life. The one thing that I learned through this experience, and I don't want to focus on what happened to me. It is not my identity. It is an experience on my journey to finding who I really am. The reason I mention what happened to me, and there's far more situations that contributed to this ultimate one accident that changed my life forever, it's that I learned I was a fighter. I was a survivor. I am a survivor, and I am a fighter. Through that trip where I did over 2 weeks of meditation and self-searching and sobbing and going to spiritual healing services and having hands-on healing and spending, I've lost track of how many hours simply sitting on the ground underneath a tree for for the amount of time that you lose track of time. And near the end of the trip, I woke up one morning after falling asleep, sobbing the hardest cry I ever cried in my life. I realized I still have me. I am me. What happened to me is not my identity. It did not claim me. It did not mold or fashion me into who I have been, who I am, and what and who I can be. It is not the clothing that I put on in the morning. It is not the way I do my hair. It is not the way that I can have a smile and I can say hello. It is something that, yes, I live with. I don't live for my brain injury. You see, in the car accident, I came out without a real physical injury. Not a cut, not a scrape. They thought I had a broken leg. Casted the wrong one. Yeah, they casted the wrong one. But they said, you probably have a mild concussion. And they sent me home. They didn't do any, let's say, further looking into what happened with my head. And my husband took me home. And as time progressed when I was home, the vertigo, the nausea, losing my words, forgetting, losing literally years of my life in memories, forgetting my wedding, forgetting my children's births, forgetting so many things. The good news is, yes, I did get them back. Thank goodness for pictures. I got them back. But what I will tell you is that we realized that as a child, I had accumulated brain injuries as well through physical experiences I had within my family. So I am a survivor of an abusive family. I am a survivor of a car accident. So it just took that one more bonk on the head. But nobody could explain why I was the difficult child. When I would have difficulty saying things and I would stammer or I would lose my words, or people would tell me that I was making up stories and probably telling a lie, because if I was telling the truth, I wouldn't have to think about it. There were times when I would fall asleep and literally lose hours and couldn't explain it, but got in trouble because I wasn't getting my chores done. Little did I know I had a concussion. There were multiple times like that. So this one car accident was the one that tipped the scale. So I had to find out, what was my why? What was my why? What was my why for wanting to be here now, coming out of that accident? I was laying in the hall. What was my why to fight whatever I was going through at that moment in the hospital, just out of the ambulance and everything else? Yes, it was a blur, but I still felt like I had to fight. What was my why? What was my fuel to focus on the people that were taking care of me? What was my fuel to try and make sense of things, even though nothing made sense? There was something in there. That spark. We all have that spark. Mine felt dim. but I knew it didn't go out. So I went on that camping trip by myself, and I came back and I realized that everything between the IPV brain injuries, the car accident injury, prior dysfunctional relationships, living with PTSD, I still have issues. I still have TBI issues, but I've learned my new normal. My college education, gone. I worked for a huge cellular company in Ontario, and I was responsible as a coordinator for all of Ontario. I also worked in coordination with Vancouver, Quebec. It was a very high pace, very high stress, very mega detail, logistics orientated job. There's no way. There was no way. I still cannot do math. I still lose my words. Yet, before the accident, up until a couple years ago, I was petrified of public speaking. I still lose my words. But speaking like this has forced me, forgive me for saying it, but covering it up. I learned my new normal. I speak slower. I have multiple students, clients, and friends in Scotland, and they tease me saying, "You speak so slow, you Canadians, you speak so slow." But I've never told them I speak so slow so that I can enunciate what I'm saying, because I live with a brain injury. I am not the brain injury. You know, it's just like having that roommate, that person that's living where you are, or the person you have to work with who drives you batty. It's not an option. You have to find a way to get along with them. You have to find a way to manage, to get yourself, your mindset beyond that, so that you can focus on what you have to do, on the task at hand. And that's what I had to do. The task at hand was my well-being, my ability to function as a functioning, to the best of my ability, decent, kind, compassionate human being. That's all that matters. If you are able to live to be your true, authentic self, the best person you are inside, and no matter what you have to do to modify yourself in comfort and learning and pushing yourself, like public speaking, you will find ways to live with that roommate, your brain injury, that you just can't get along with. You both have different agendas. I can tell you, last night, one of my problems is perception, depth perception since the accident. So when I see a surface, I can't tell if there's a dip. I have a service dog who has recently retired. I did not have him with me. Normally, I watch him walk ahead of me, and where he would put his feet, I could see if I would have to step down. I was walking down the driveway last night, and there was a dip, and down I went. You could sit there and cry. I sat there and waved at my husband. Quite honestly, I thought, okay, yeah, All right, here I am on my butt, somebody's driveway, don't know the person. Okay, we're just going to breathe for a minute. We're just going to breathe. I'm not going to cry. I'm not going to panic. I'm just going to sit, going to breathe. Best thing I ever learned, breathing. That's a whole other talk. I just did my breathing. My husband's in the car backing into that driveway. I'm waving so he can see me. He came out, helped me up. You learn to pick your battles. What would being upset and angry, emotional about falling on my butt in the middle of somebody's driveway? You know what? It is what it is. It is what it is. The people there are never going to see me again. My concern, make sure I'm okay. Make sure I get it together. Make sure I take care of my why. Make sure I take care of who I am. Some people think that that is egotistical. No, it's not. Doing what you need to do, living with your brain injury, because you are not your brain injury, but doing what you need to do to live with your brain injury, but that is for your highest and best, is not egotistical. Somebody taught me a saying recently: self-care is not a luxury, it's a necessity. Another one that I use often with my students is when you are on that plane and those oxygen masks come down, you put yours on first. Because when you have that oxygen, you are clear-headed as you can be at that moment. You can think, make decisions to take care of the other people that are depending on you or that you are concerned about as well. Taking care of yourself first, doing what you need to do to be comfortable in your mind, within your body, and within your soul is what comes first. What is for your highest and best. That makes you capable of achieving anything. Anything. I promise you. When I came back from that car accident, I did a lot of soul searching. I went back to therapy. And there were a lot of things that came up, but I realized as a child, now you heard that I am a medium, yes. And actually, yes, it did get better after the car accident. Just saying, just many stories about people like that. There were many things that I used to get punished for, but were essentially me. So going through and taking advantage in a productive way, and somewhat of a self-serving way. The therapist, occupational therapist, psychological therapist, psychiatrist, physiotherapy, chiropractic, post-concussive therapy, magnetic therapy. I'm telling you, you name it, I've done it. But the thing is that I realized I had that fighter in me still. I was still fighting. So then I started searching for my why. Why? What's my purpose? Why am I fighting so hard? If everything I knew is gone, my education, my corporate exec career, everything gone, memories, why am I still fighting so hard? Because my job here is not done yet. My job here is not done, and my true self has not come out yet. I did a lot of reflecting. I did a lot of talking with my husband. And I said, I don't know what to do with myself. I feel that I have to do something for a career. I can't go back. I can't go back and do what I did. There's no way. And I remember looking at him and saying, why not work with what God gave me? Me. My abilities. My ability to be compassionate. Despite how rough things may be, I can still listen to somebody. I can honestly, despite the abuse, the car accident, everything I've been through, I have been able to take every single negative and make it a positive. I went and had myself educated as a spiritualist minister, not once, but twice. How was I going to study when I have no memory? Hard. Study very hard. I learned how I'm a learner. I learned that color. So everything had a color. I had highlighters that matched the Post-it notes, that matched the bookmarks. I had things on audio and video as well as in a textbook. I immersed myself. But I didn't ordain once, I ordained twice. Once as a New York State minister and once as an Ontario Canadian minister. Still wasn't good enough. Just before that, I became a 5-time tested and proven medium. I am 1 in 36 in the world who are certified by one particular place in the States. The only place in the States, only 1 of 2 in the world where you can be literally certified, tested, recognized to be genuine. I decided to work with me. I decided that I, Tammarishka, had a lot to offer. The person I was falling apart and falling to pieces, that's just a puddle on the floor. And I wasn't holding anything together. It was just falling apart. I was doing everything that everyone expected of me. And I was believing everything everybody was telling me about myself. I then decided, this is for me. This is not for my brain injury. This is not for any of this stuff. I'm going to conquer my biggest fear, and that was being myself. Something I was punished for all my life. I had to learn to teach myself how to remember. Occupational therapist, phenomenal. You will not believe, I think we should have gotten shares in the Post-it note company. My poor husband, everywhere there were magnets and hooks and keys and shelves and labels, and it's unbelievable. So I still do that sometimes. I still live with a brain injury, but it's not my identity. You all have the ability to use the chat. Why are you here tonight? Why? When you have experienced everything you have with your brain injury, what made you come to this speak tonight and listen? What was your purpose? What did you want to get out of this evening's talk? Because you know something? That's your fuel. You have that spark in you. give it the oxygen to grow. Give it the oxygen. You know, it's just like that campfire or the candle. If it's covered, if it's sheltered and closed in, it can't burn. It can't shine its light to illuminate the way, the place, the space that it's supposed to illuminate. We have that spark in every single one of us. We have that fuel. You are all fighters. You are here right now, living, breathing, finding who you are. You have to remember, you are not your brain injury. Your brain injury is the really irritating roommate. And there's times when you can go in your room and close your door and put on the headphones and listen to some music and go into your Zen. I just received a message. I joined as I feel like exactly. And that can be your fuel. That can be your fuel. Seeing how far people have come. I became a spiritual healer, an international spiritual healer, recognized in 2 countries. I have done, you know, I've gone to school and became an international master teacher of spiritual development. And this was not just an online certification. I was taught by an actual teacher, a UK recognized school teacher who taught us how to teach, but with, instead of curriculum of the public school system, we applied spiritual development. I went back for that. I remember going to that class, and one day I walked out in tears. I was so overwhelmed. Nobody there knew I had a brain injury. I had a brain injury. I was not the brain injury. I was in a situation where I did not learn a coping mechanism. That was my moment. And what did I do? I learned that if I cannot handle something in the moment, before I do, I don't know if any of you have experienced DBT therapy. Before I did that lid flip, I decided to remove myself from the environment for the moment, do some breathing. Master instructor came out and she said, "What's going on in there?" And she meant in here. And I said, "I don't know. I just feel so overwhelmed. I don't even know if I can do this. This is so beyond me." I literally felt like my brain was going to explode. And I know, I'm sure many of you experience migraines, pain in your head that's not just the regular migraine, and the vertigo and I was dealing with that every day. And I live with that a lot, but I don't let it claim me. Yeah, there's days when I will go in my nest with my dogs and just curl up for a couple days, but I come back. And when I was standing outside that classroom and I felt like I was beyond my brain's capability, she looked me in the eyes and she said, "I see a teacher in you." This program, I have to tell you, you can only become a student teacher by invitation. You cannot just apply and you cannot say, "Oh, I can afford the tuition, I'm going to sign up." It doesn't work that way. You have to be invited. You have to have proved yourself before you get invited to be able to apply, to be able to be chosen to go. And she invited me. And she looked at me And she put her hand here and she said, there is a beautiful heart in there. There is a teacher in there ready to love her students and has the gift of teaching. You just have to see it in yourself. And if you see the fighter in you, the survivor in you, and all the things that you've overcome, this is a piece of cake. And I can tell every single one of you, there's no harm in needing to put the training wheels back on every now and then. It's not a sign of weakness. It's a sign of strength. It's a sign of being a fighter and a survivor, because you're not willing to fall off the bike and give up so easily and walk away. You want to put those training wheels back on to keep going. And you need to do what you need to do to keep going. And you will find any way you can to keep going. So you put the training wheels on for a little bit. Just like I go into my nest. And then when you feel better, you take the wheels off. I come out of my nest. I put on my lipstick. I do my hair. We're good to go. You are all survivors. And all survivors are fighters. You have that fuel in you. You have that drive in you to learn and experience. To take the moment. Somebody else might hold the pencil straight up and somebody might hold it sideways. Somebody might hold it in the right hand and somebody might hold it in their left. Does it matter? There is no such thing as normal. If somebody tells you, oh, that is not the norm, that's not the norm. There is no such thing as normal. And if somebody tells you otherwise, I think the conversation's over. Because it is what works to make you a decent human being. I took what that source above gave me, my abilities as a medium. And then I bumped it up a notch. And I bumped it up a notch. And then another one. But I set myself up for success. Whenever you take something on when you're living with a brain injury, do not, for your own sake and love of yourself, put the bar too high. Set it at an attainable height. Because when you hit that bar and you achieve it and you go higher than it, like, yeah, I've got this, man. I did it. This is amazing. And you do it again. And you exceed your own expectations. That is also fuel. That is also fuel. And sets you up for success. And that desire to keep going. And that desire to prove that irritating roommate wrong. And the statistics. Do not live by the statistics. It's just other people telling you about you. Nobody knows you better than yourself. One of the most valuable things I learned, first and foremost, take advantage of everything that's available to you, even if you think you don't need it. There are times when you learn to cope with things or manage, or you tune it out because you're so frustrated with it. So if somebody says to you to take Take advantage of this. It's being offered to you. Take it. I remember going to therapy, and there were some mornings I was literally, my husband would have to force me to sit up to go. Yes, I live with depression. Yes, I live with post-traumatic stress disorder. And I do get down. I am only human. But he got me up, or he brought that coffee upstairs and was doing this to get me sort of conscious. There were days when I stood there with tears in my eyes saying to him, I didn't want to go. And he said, you're going. And here's another coffee for the road. And I would go, and I would come back. And one of the first things he would say to me is, well, do you feel better? And I did every single time I went. Now, yes, I was blessed. I had my own cheerleader at home. But do you know something? The most pivotal cheerleader is yourself. Because it's you that has to do this. It's you that has to go through this. It's you that has to get up. It's you that has to put your feet on the floor. Or it's you that needs to look at yourself in the morning in that mirror and be at peace, knowing you did the best for yourself that day for the person that is looking back at you. You know, I found that my moods changed, the clothing I like changed, the foods I like changed, you know, colors, but my favorite colors changed, my personality changed, my interest changed, everything changed. The person I was no longer existed. So I took what I had, I took what I could hold from that little puddle and tried to rebuild it and make it into something solid to hold and slowly nurture it and slowly work on it. And yeah, you're going to get frustrated. And yes, you're going to have those days when you sit on that, you know, your chair, sofa, go to bed, whatever, in the shower and just sob. Tears are cleansing. Tears are cleansing. But I can tell you, everything you go through is for a purpose. Everything you go through is part of your journey for a reason. Before I was starting this, I'm sure many of you can relate to this. You go start to say something and then it's gone. It just came back to me. You know, there are times when I was very resentful from the abuse that I experienced. I can now, that I've gotten to know myself, the fighter that's inside of me, that fuel that's inside of me, and what it took for me to physically get up, make my legs walk, and go out that door and not look back. That was still in there. So I found that person and I brought her out. And after the car accident, I called on her. And I used her to show me how to rebuild that little bit from that puddle that I had in my hand. I now can hold someone's hand and say, I understand you. When they come to me as a minister and they live in an abusive situation, I understand you. When somebody comes to me with a brain injury, I became an Obaya mentor, a peer mentor. And I did the training and I did some volunteering for I can't remember how long, maybe 2 years, not quite, because I ended up with some physical issues that I had to deal with. Again, I had to take care of myself first. And you know something? I took the therapy. I spoke with the occupational therapist. They came to my home. I was embarrassed. I couldn't do things. You know, my home, there were things that were not like, they weren't as tidy as I would have liked. Things were not as organized as I would like. She came in and she said, I'm not here to judge. I'm here to hold you up. I'm here to help you find a way to hold yourself up. I learned how to do things in a new way. That became my normal. I became my normal. I became what people told me was so wrong and kept putting me down. That fighter in me proved them wrong. I can be amazing. I found somebody amazing in here. I found the fighter that had the bravery to walk out of an abusive household and to leave a car accident. I can certainly get a handle on this. Embrace who you are. Embrace your true, authentic self. Your life is different now. Whether it is a brain injury, whether you have physical illness, whether you have mental illness, whether you just feel lost. Find the you. Don't reinvent the wheel. Find the you. Find that one that's gotten you this far. Grab their hand and say, come on, let's get on the ride. We've got this. Thank you for allowing me to speak. It was a great honor. It's a pleasure. And yeah, I could go on for hours about this. So thank you for inviting me. And yeah, I guess if you would like anybody later on to have a Q&A, I'm totally open.
Thank you so much, Tammarishka, for sharing your story. That was very honest and inspiring. So thank you very much for sharing.